Did you know the Bible itself mentions a missing book? A book that was once considered so important that even the sacred scriptures referenced it? Twice. In Joshua 10:13 and 2 Samuel 1:18, the Book of Jasher is named, yet today it is nowhere to be found in most Bibles. Why was it removed? What secrets does it hold? Some say it's an ancient historical record, revealing lost details about biblical events, stories of the Nephilim before the Great Flood, a young Abraham escaping a deadly king, and powerful Egyptian magicians who performed dark miracles before Pharaoh. Others claim it's a medieval forgery, filled with legends rather than truth. But one thing is certain. This book has been shrouded in mystery for centuries. If it was mentioned in the Bible, why don't we have it today? Did religious leaders deliberately suppress it? Or was it lost to history, only to resurface centuries later? In this video, we will uncover the Book of Jasher's hidden stories, analyze its authenticity, and explore why it was excluded from the biblical canon. And by the end, you might find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about ancient scripture. Let's begin. What is the Book of Jasher? The Book of Jasher, just the name alone, sparks curiosity. Unlike other so-called lost books of the Bible, Jasher is different. It isn't just an obscure text found in some hidden cave or an apocryphal writing ignored by early church leaders. No, this book is directly mentioned in the very Bible we read today. In Joshua 10:13, we find a puzzling statement. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is this not written in the Book of Jasher? And again, in 2 Samuel 1:18 we read, And he bade them teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the Book of Jasher. These verses aren't vague references. They suggest that Jasher was a well-known text at the time these biblical books were written. But here's the mystery. While other books like Genesis, Exodus, and Kings have been preserved for thousands of years, Jasher has seemingly vanished. What does Jasher mean? The name Jasher itself holds a clue. In Hebrew, Sefer HaYashar translates to the Book of the Upright, or the Book of the Just. But this raises an important question. Was the Book of Jasher a historical record, a lost biblical manuscript, or something else entirely? Some scholars believe it was a chronicle of Israel's history, separate from the Torah, but closely tied to biblical events. Others suggest it was more of a poetic or moral guide, filled with stories designed to teach righteousness. But if that's the case, why was it referenced in relation to Joshua's battle and David's lament for Saul? Was it more than just a history book? What happened to the original book? This is where the mystery deepens. If the Book of Jasher was once part of Israel's historical records, where did it go? Some theories suggest it was lost during the Babylonian exile when Jerusalem was destroyed, and many Jewish texts were either burned or taken. It was deliberately removed by later religious authorities who found its content too controversial. It was never a single book, but rather a collection of writings that later fragmented into different texts. Interestingly, over the centuries, multiple versions of a so-called Book of Jasher have surfaced. But are any of them the real one? The rediscovered copies, are they authentic? Today, there are at least 3 major texts claiming to be the Book of Jasher. 1. The 1625 Venetian edition. This version, first printed in Hebrew, was claimed to be the lost original. However, many scholars believe it was a medieval composition rather than an ancient text. 2. The 1751 English translation. This version, translated by Jacob Iliv, became widely circulated, but many dismissed it as a literary fabrication. 3. The 1829 Ancient Jasher. This version, published in New York, presents itself as an authentic biblical chronicle, but there is no evidence that it existed before the 19th century. So, if none of these are the true Book of Jasher, does the original still exist somewhere, buried in the sands of time? Or was it erased from history by those who wanted it forgotten? Why would this book be left out of the Bible? This is the question that keeps scholars and theologians debating. If the Bible itself references it, why don't we have it today? Some argue that it was never considered divinely inspired, just a historical reference like the annals of the kings of Israel. But others suggest a more controversial theory, that Jasher contained details too dangerous or revealing, possibly contradicting mainstream theological narratives. And this is where things take a fascinating turn. Because if the Book of Jasher truly expanded on biblical events, especially ones involving figures like Noah, Moses, and Joshua, what lost details might it contain? In the next chapter, we will explore some of the most shocking and unknown stories found in the surviving versions of Jasher. Stories that paint a far deeper, more dramatic, and sometimes even unsettling picture of biblical history than we've ever been told. Could these hidden stories change how we understand the Bible? Let's find out. The Bible gives us a clear, structured account of history, creation, the flood, the patriarchs, and the formation of Israel. But what if there was more to the story? What if crucial details were left out? The surviving versions of the Book of Jasher contain lost narratives that expand on some of the most well-known biblical events, often in shocking and unexpected ways. These are not just small additions or poetic embellishments. They are detailed, alternative versions of biblical history, and they raise serious questions. 1. The Tower of Babel, a war against God. The story of the Tower of Babel is well known. Humanity, speaking one language, builds a tower to the heavens. God sees their arrogance, confuses their language, and scatters them across the earth. But in Jasher, the story is far more terrifying. According to Jasher 9, Nimrod, the great-grandson of Noah, doesn't just want to build a tower. He and his people want to wage war against God himself. Some of them say, "Let us build a tower so high that we may ascend into heaven and strike God down." Others want to place their own gods in the sky. And here's where it gets chilling. Jasher says that God didn't just confuse their language. He sent angels to slaughter them and curse them with bizarre punishments. Some became like animals. Others were cast into different dimensions. This version paints a much darker and more dramatic picture of Babel, a moment where mankind's rebellion almost led to divine war. 2. Abraham versus King Nimrod, the attempted execution. In the Bible, Abraham is introduced as an adult, already faithful to God. But Jasher reveals a childhood story that sounds almost mythical. According to Jasher 8, Nimrod's astrologers see a star rise on the night Abraham is born, predicting he will overthrow the king's rule. In a scene eerily similar to the story of Moses, Nimrod orders that all newborn boys be killed. But Abraham's mother hides him in a cave for 10 years. Later, when Abraham grows up and publicly denounces idol worship, Nimrod arrests him and throws him into a burning furnace, a story similar to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But just like them, Abraham walks out unharmed. If this is true, why was this part of Abraham's life never included in the biblical account? Could it have been too legendary, too extreme? Or does it suggest that the Bible's version of events was carefully edited? 3. The Nephilim and the Flood, the untold chaos. Genesis 6:4 gives us a brief and cryptic mention of the Nephilim, giants, possibly fallen angels or their hybrid offspring, who lived before the flood. But the Book of Jasher goes into disturbing detail about what led God to wipe out humanity. According to Jasher 4, before the flood, the Nephilim began to corrupt everything, not just humans, but animals too. They taught forbidden magic, created unnatural hybrid creatures, and even drank human blood. In a chilling passage it says, "And men taught the mixture of animals of one species with the other, in order therewith to provoke the Lord." This suggests that genetic experiments, what we might call biological tampering today, played a role in God's decision to send the flood. Could this passage hint at something more than just ordinary wickedness? 4. Moses, Pharaoh, and the supernatural war. We all know the story of Moses and Pharaoh, but Jasher provides a hidden chapter, a mystical battle between Moses and the Egyptian sorcerers. Jasher 79 describes how Pharaoh's magicians could transform into animals and create illusions that seemed real. The showdown between Moses and Pharaoh's priests wasn't just about snakes. It was an all-out war of supernatural power. Even more fascinating, Jasher claims that Moses was a great military leader long before returning to Egypt. It says that Moses, raised as a prince in Pharaoh's house, became a warrior king, leading an army to conquer Ethiopia. Why would details like this be left out of the Bible? Did the early scribes fear it made Moses too much like a legend rather than a prophet? 5. Joshua's long day, a celestial event. One of the Bible's strangest miracles occurs in Joshua 10:13, when the sun stands still for an entire day. But Jasher expands on this event, hinting that it may have been more than just a prolonged sunset. It describes how celestial forces, possibly angelic or even cosmic phenomena, intervened in the battle. Some have speculated whether this passage hints at an ancient solar event, an eclipse, or even something more supernatural. If Joshua's battle was recorded in both the Bible and Jasher, does that mean Jasher was once considered an official part of Scripture? Ultimately, whether the Book of Jasher is truth or legend, history or myth, it still offers a remarkable glimpse into the ancient world. If it is a genuine ancient text, then it may provide us with lost insights into biblical events. If it is just a later invention, then it still remains a valuable piece of historical literature that shows how past generations interpreted Scripture. But here's the real question for you. Do you believe the Book of Jasher contains lost biblical wisdom? Or is it simply a forgotten book of myths? Whatever your answer, one thing is certain. The mystery of the Book of Jasher is far from over. Thank you for joining this journey. If you want to explore more lost books, hidden prophecies, and ancient mysteries, make sure to keep watching, because the past may hold more secrets than we ever imagined.